Welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So got another classic album inspection for you. 35 years old today, June 25th, 1987. White Lion released their second album, Pride. Here's a copy of it. This is a Rock Candy remaster, so it's back to front. It's pretty cool. If you want to get a copy of it, that's the one to have. Couldn't find out what studio this was recorded at, but Michael Wagner produced, engineered and mixed it. Obviously he's renowned for his work with Extreme, Dokken, Accept, to name but a few. It's 6 weeks recording. It was written on acoustic guitar. Mike Tramp, Vito Bratta in a room. When it came to recording or practicing it loud, Vito Bratta realised that he couldn't use the chord voicings that way. It was all cluttering up, so he kind of started arpeggiating and played a different way, and it created sort of a unique rhythm tracks on this album. I had 2 top 10 singles, Wait made number 8 and When the Children Cry number 3. It's double platinum in America. So that's kind of a little potted history of it. The sound of the album, when you first listen to it, it's very swamped in sort of reverb, a good reverb, but it hasn't got much bottom end. It is poppy and light, and the solos are mixed very loud in the lead vocals. But first track's Hungry, so 3 minutes and 55, so this was the first song I heard off this on the Friday Rock Show. I really liked it. My brother went and bought it. So when I was 16, we knuckle loved this album. I will confess, later on I kind of went off White Line when the next album wasn't as good, and Main Attraction, the last album, which I'll talk about at the end. Took many years, but more recently I kind of came back listening to this, and for what it is, which is a hair pop metal album this time, it is a good example of the genre. It's well crafted, well written. So Hungry's got a cool staccato riff. You notice like Vito Bratta's doing the rhythm track and does the Van Halen thing of playing his fills on the fast jabs, as well as playing his fills in the same pass on the rhythm track. It's got a good sort of pounding riff, cheesy lyrics, but anyway, that's to be expected from this era. Next track, Lonely Nights. This opens with a really nice acoustic passage using thirds on the A and D string. Then it goes into the key of A minor for the main riff. I think Vito might be using a Strat type guitar, some kind of coil tap on the verses. It's a slightly more semi-distorted sound. More cheesy lyrics, kind of Mike Tramp, broke girls from broken home type lyrics, which he likes to do, very sentimental for rock. But that gave him something unique. Tramp's a good singer. I mean, I don't love his voice, but he's got a kind of softness, but a bit of a rasp, because he's Danish. He's got that kind of slight accent to his singing, I suppose. So it gives him a pretty unique sound, a more interesting sound on the post Van Halen hair metal thing. So nice solo from Vito on this with some kind of pivoted tapping. Then Don't Give Up, 3 minutes 15's next. Really cool, nice use of sort of, 2-note shapes. Fourths and thirds on the G and D string. Sorry, on the G and B string on this from Vito. Quite uplifting lyric. When you're stuck at home and a teenager, listen to this track, it'll pick you up. And then track 4, Sweet Little Loving. I think this might be my kind of favourite, one of my favourites on the album. It's a track last time I listened to the album, I was like, really like this track. Cheesy, starts with a kind of Queen's type of harmony vocal unaccompanied, but it's got a really cool slinky riff, great solo, and it's got one of my favourite aspirational lyrics of the time, driving down the boulevard in fancy cars. If you're from Cumbria like me, where it pisses down rain all the time, that was like a top thing when I was a kid. I really like that track. And then finishing side one was Lady of the Valley, so this has got a kind of mystical type of lyrics, so it's kind of more like the lyrical content on the previous album, which is Fight to Survive. So Fight to Survive is kind of heavy. It's got a more of a typical independent American metal sound to it with the rhythm guitars, but obviously it sounds lighter with Mike Tramp's vocals. And there's a few more sort of typical power metal type tropes in some of the lyrics. It's a good record, actually. It's not poor relation to Pride, and it stands out as their second best album. It's well worth checking out. But Lady of the Valley, starts with acoustic guitar, nicely picked, very tinsely sound again. There's too much. It's too bright, the production on this, but that's typical of the times, really. But it's kind of got more to it, more sections. This later on they do a track called Lights and Thunder, and that's stretched out more than arrangement. I think this is kind of bridging track. It looks to the past, but it looks to the future as well. Really good guitar solo from Vito. It goes on a nice journey, and it's got an epic fade out at the end, and it's cool cool riff in D minor on this. So that was side one. It's just a really strong side, no doubt about it. And then side two with Weight. So this is like the track that still gets played on Planet Rock, deservedly slow. I think when you listen to this song now, you realise how well crafted it is. Obviously, really, really good intro with a 12-string acoustic, little Mixolydian sound, but he also uses what's called a Mixolydian flat 6 mode, Vito Bratta on the riff, and that just gives it a really nice major minor tonality. It's got a great lift on the bridge, and then the chorus is really good. Simple pedal tone, power chords over the top, and then he does a nice muted part, an extra overdub, Vito. So there's not much overdubs on this record. You get the old overdub guitar part like harmony, a little pick part like this, and sometimes you get gang chant vocals or some harmony vocals, but it's overproduced in terms of its mix and its that type of sound, but they haven't over-egged it with putting too much on, which is sometimes a pitfall that bands can fall into. So Wagner's done a good job there. Next track's All You Need Is Rock and Roll, one of the weaker tracks on the album. Cheesy, chorus is crap, but it's pretty catchy. It's got a cool bluesy intro, and then it breaks down at the end into a kind of cool blues jam. And Vito lets rip a bit. So Vito's a really great player. He, he arpeggiates, does those little arpeggiated chords, using nice inversions. His guitar parts are all really carefully worked out and really accurately played. If I've got criticism, he doesn't have a strong vibrato. So his playing recalls, people talk about his Van Halen influence, two-handed tapping, stuff like that, tap and bend as well. But there's also a big Randy Rhoads influence in his sort of trills, and he has a delicate sort of classical touch to his playing, which means he doesn't have as ballsy vibrato. His vibrato is more like Randy Rhoads. It's not the width of, say, Van Halen. So, but it's great. His Weight solo was recently featured in a classic rock top 100 solos. So, and in terms of structure, it's really good. So All You Need Is Rock and Roll's a weaker track. And you got to Tell Me. This is a really cheesy track, but I like Tell Me, Baby. Yeah, it's got a whoa, whoa, whoa at the start, which is always good. Again, I like this track. And then All Join Hands, it's a bit of a cheesy chorus on this, but the rhythm guitar sound, they've done something different to the mix on this, and it's quite kind of squeezed, but it's cool, really tight. A little kind of dark sounding. Again, the riffage on this is more like Fight to Survive, I think, this track. Like Lady of the Valley, with its lyrical content, and like this track with its kind of heaviness of the riff, you'd find in this type of sound, you'd find that on the Fight to Survive album. And then it finishes When the Children Cry, it's a number 3 hit, as I said before. Again, it's acoustic, sort of pick ballad, slightly classical in style. Look, it's a lovely song, I just find it too cheesy. And this is a trap for bands back then. Mr. Big, it happened to them, it happened to Extreme. You play a ballad, it becomes a big hit. People go, you can't sit buy the album. Why is the album not all like that? And then what happens is your next album, which is what happened with White Lion, goes gold and not platinum. I think Big Game, I'm not sure. If it went platinum, it only went 1 platinum. It didn't have a hit. But the principal problem with Big Game was they stuck with Michael Wagner. It kind of sounded the same. Vito did some probably even better guitar work on it, but the songs just weren't there. Whenever I listen to that album, it kind of coughs and splutters to 6 out of 10, Remember when it came out and had a big poster? And it was, typically at that time when you're young, you're like, you get into it, but after a bit I was like, it's not as good, this. I mean, when one of the best songs is a cover version, Radar Love, you're in trouble. And then the next album was kind of hopeful for, because they switched producer Richie Zito, they re-recorded the track Broken Heart off the Fight to Survive album, but I like it even less. Again, I tried liking it. Opened with one of their best ever songs, Lights and Thunder, which I mentioned before, which was an 8-minute track, and they cut loose on that with the arrangement. But Vito's soloing wasn't as good. The production, Zito did good things, but he didn't capture the sound of the band as much. So there was a lot of ballading on it, and I didn't like it. I couldn't get into it. It was kind of 4 or 5 out of 10 for me. So that was why I kind of went off White Line. I didn't like the 2 albums after this. And then I kind of came back recently. Well, I do like the first 2 albums, and they're well worth checking out. Vito Bratta, so Mike Tramp still plays live. James Lomenzo went to Megadeth and then quit them to go into graphic design because it paid more money, which tells you everything about the state of the music industry. Not sure what Greg D'Angelo does. Vito Bratt's probably the most fascinating person in the band. After White Line finished, which I guess was in '92, he just disappeared. He moved back with his parents. I think one of his parents was ill. He was taking care of them. He did go on Eddie Trunk's show or something in the noughties, I think, or Eddie Trunk spoke to him, and he just wasn't interested in doing music. He'd had some hand problems, I think, but he enjoyed playing a classical guitar at home. Mike Tramp tried to get him to come back and redo White Line. Obviously, there would have been quite a bit of interest in circles, because they were a popular act. I saw them at Manchester on the big game, on the main attraction tour. And they were the headline act, and it was pretty packed, smaller venue, and obviously some supporting Motley Crue as well. They weren't great live. They didn't have that sort of presence on stage to me, I must say. But anyway, I digress. But Vito Bratta, he, I kind of admire that. He kind of, he made some music he wanted to make. He had a really big success with one album and did pretty well on another. And I guess he just felt like I've said what I wanted to say as a musician, and didn't want to go back out, and do it again and rest on past glories. So quite cool in a way. So yeah, this album's just finishing up. I'm just checking the length of it, 44 minutes, so a little longer than albums typically for that time. They tend to be 41, 42 or 38 minutes kind of thing. But yeah, a good solid record. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Some people give it more, but I wouldn't give it less than that. It holds up as a good slice of pop metal from its day. Cheers, thanks very much.